I guess it's a bit of a hang up, kind of. So many people do this kind of thing in every area of life, where they don't gather any information about what they're trying to do. They prefer to have this sense of mystery and awe, and they like their emotional highs, and their egos can't stand discovering things that are contrary to what their assumptions were, that they grew up with, that they have such fond attachments for, that are ruining their lives. Things that are seemingly so benign and wonderful for some things, and yet they're so destructive. And it doesn't matter what area it is. People do this in science. People do this in economics, religion. It's just a facet of the psychodynamics of a human being. And so many people have talked about living behind veil in life, and etc., etc., and being in the present and mindfulness and things like that, which are so widely misunderstood, just like anything else that they've encountered, and it's misused, and it could be so. Well, anyway, I'll leave that. It's just the way things are with the humans, and love is really the approach of actually trying to gather information about what you're doing, about what a person is doing, is so destructive to the ego and the assumptions that it is invested in, and those things. And it's like people stick their head in the sand and say, I don't want to live that way, or that's just blah blah blah. And it's just that people use their intellect, and the intellect has got no compassion. It's got no understanding that it can achieve about life, and it operates with logic and reasoning and those kinds of things, and those are very, very powerful and essential tools for humans. But if you try to walk around on one leg without using the other one that's available, you're going to be so much better off, regardless of how technically and athletic you are hopping on one leg, and how proud you are of it. And you don't want to see that you actually have two legs. This can be an embarrassing thing, and in fact, it's an almost impossible barrier for most to actually get over it to any great degree, regardless of how much they think they have. It's like this thing is current about thinking outside the box. Oh, geez, that's good, thinking outside the box. Well, if you're still focused on a box, you're still focused on boxes. It doesn't matter whether you think you're outside of a box or you're inside of a box. It's all just a bigger box. It's like those dolls where they put one progressively inside of another, inside of another, inside of another as the size changes. It's just, you're still playing with dolls. And that's, as you see, that's a real trap. And people get paid big money for bringing something about thinking outside the box, and they sit down to start a little symposium, a little conference, a little instructive. What do? They open a briefcase. I mean, metaphorically, it's just the same old approach from the get-go, and nobody's seeing it. It's like the old saying, the emperor or the king has no clothes. And people think, oh, that's such a phantasmagorical Eastern mythical tale of cute fairy tale or something. Well, that right there is a box. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. It's impossible for some people. It's just, and do you ever wonder why there's so many things going on in the world that are unfortunate? It just, people are just, they're just sticking, they're just stepping on one end of the stick and it flies up and hit them in the face, and they say, Joe did it to me. Or it's because of that group of people, or because of that what those people are doing to me. So, given the volatility of people's emotions and their desire to have good emotions, which is preeminent before gathering facts or learning how to, or what to look for, or see what other people have done regarding, or getting information and perspectives from a wide variety of sources, and just not your intellect, but actually your physiology. What do these things mean to your physiology? Because your intellect is a very small portion. Your physiology contains so much more. But you take something like astrophysics, it just seems complicated, but the fact of the matter is, it starts out with 1 + 1 = 2. And that's just a fact. That's all. And there is a stairway, and there are little baby steps all the way up to the vast area of astrophysics and beyond. Nearly everything of the intellect is like that. It boils down to some very simple things. And physiology and learning how to deal and listen to your physiology side boils down to the same thing. Yes, it is extremely complex in the end, if you venture that far, but it has its beginnings the same way. There's something very, very simple. And people, they like to be impressed. They like things to be mystical, or they like things to be inspirational. All kinds of emotional things they do before they've gathered facts, and most people just don't know how to deal with the physiology side. And it's very simple. It's just learning how to listen. What does it mean to listen? And don't get into some pop psychology. You want to learn how to listen from the people who have gotten to the astrophysics and beyond, where they're creating their own new tools for humanity in this area. And people like this exist, and they're well known, but you're just not thinking about it. because you haven't gathered the information. And this is just an example of how blinkered people can be about what is the, starting out at the simplest and of course necessary. If you don't get 1 + 1 = 2, you're dead in the water. You're not going to go any further. I don't care what you say, how fancy you say your mathematics are. But the same is true in physiology. There's something basic, and if you don't get it, you're going to be dead in the water, and you're going to be saying things that aren't true because you don't get it. And the initial step, and it is a requirement. You can't get past it. You must do it. And I'm going to say something, and you're going to see how you're going to have some assumptions jump up right away. But one of these people who looked into this type of thing, and he had to start out himself, but just like Stephen Hawking or Einstein or Oppenheimer or those, they started out with there and they became leaders in developing new things in their field. This person was such a person in this field. And he said, if silence is genuinely inside of you, it will bring you what you need. Live in silence. Now, a lot of people will jump to conclusions that they know what that means. And the fact of the matter is, they don't. It takes its place, that saying takes its place besides all the other sayings in the world that people think they know what it means, but they don't, such as love thy neighbor as thyself. Again, said by somebody who was a leader in that field. And everybody and their mother's uncle will say, oh yes, I know what that means. And yet, look what's happening in the world, of what one people is doing to one group is doing to another, and it goes on. And there are so many people who are leaders in this field, and people are using their intellect to try to understand this, and then they're using their emotions to thinking they understand these things. What's it going to take to get people to be able to see? Well, first of all, you got to learn what it is to listen, and you've got to learn how. How do you go about learning? If you're not going to use your intellect, how do you go about learning how to listen? Because that's your number one step. If you don't really understand the significance of what I'm saying, and you think I'm dwelling on something, I am dwelling on something, because if you're going to